Welcome to this short and very incisive guide on using Binnie's genetics, and we're going to look at genetics for bees in this, so let's get on with it. Short and sweet. The first object is a lab stand, and a lab stand is used to fit or to attach an apiarist, botany gene or arborist database. And when you attach by right clicking the database on the lab stand, you can then right click the lab stand and it basically shows you everything that is in the database, which is on top. Okay, so that's the first block. Second block we're going to look at is the analyzer, and very simply it analyzes bees, and this requires, besides power, DNA dye. And DNA dye is, there's two recipes for DNA dye. You've got one that gives you 2, which is just 3 dyes, magenta, purple and pink, or you can put indigo in there instead, or there's one that gives you 8, which is better, which is purple and glowstone. And quite simply all this does is, when you get your bees and you add DNA dye and power and you put your bee in, it analyses the bee and gives you your traits, pretty much like this bee ELISA does, but of course you don't need honey for it, and it has a nice little graphic look floating around on top, letting you know how it's getting on. And once done, NEI will show you the basics, but if you then take the bee ELISA and put the Meadows bee in, you can see everything because it's been fully analysed, so you can see all the pages and everything without the need for honey drops. Okay, so you can use both basically. We'll keep hold of that bee, we'll need it in a bit. I don't need you though. The analyzer is also used for analysing the DNA sequences. If you see there, it says very faint unknown in brackets and unsequenced. We'll come to these in a bit, but basically you can analyse these sequences and it will fill in that unknown bit and tell you what the sequence is. We'll get to the sequences when we get over there. Just for now, I'll just show you very quickly. There you go, lifespan shorter. Okay, so that's another use of the analyzer. In fact, that's the only way you can actually do analysing these DNA sequences, is you can't do it with any other equipment or anything. And so on to our next block, and that is the gene pool, which, like the old gene pool, it turns bees into raw DNA. Requires ethanol and enzymes. Okay, so you need liquid ethanol and enzymes, and of course power to make raw DNA. So let's see how we make ethanol. First of all, it requires the fermenter and water, and then some sort of vegetation, and this can be either fertilizer made from apatite, or you can use mulch or compost. And there are lots and lots of different recipes for creating biomass in NEI. You can use just about any vegetation whatsoever. So that's what the fermenter does. It takes these 3 items, turns them into biomass, which then you pump into a still, and that turns the biomass into ethanol, and then you can use that ethanol in the gene pool. Making enzymes, however, is a little bit more trickier, and there's basically 4 steps. Step 1 is to craft bone meal and sugar into what we call growth medium, and you then take that growth medium, mix it with water in an incubator to create liquid growth medium. You take that liquid growth medium and you mix it with wheat to make bacteria, and you'll have to remember this because we'll use bacteria again in another machine. And then step 4 is you take the bacteria and mix it with sugar to make enzyme. Sounds a lot, but that's what the incubator's for, basically mixing liquids and solids together. And once you have your enzyme and ethanol, you can simply pop a bee in here and it will turn it into liquid DNA. There's a little bug at the minute which does this. It's nothing to do with the resource pack, but oh, and of course it requires power, so if I just flick that, you'll see it starts processing, but we don't want to do that, so we'll save that bee from eternal death. Right, onto our next machine, and that's the Isolator. And that basically uses ethanol again, so, you know, with the fermenter and still, and enzymes, so you need this setup here. And basically what this does is so there's your ethanol, there's your enzymes, it takes a bee, you use blank sequences, and it basically takes traits out the bee. So any of these traits, it could be shorter life, slowest worker, it could be temperature normal, humid normal, flowers, or any of the other ones. So that's basically what the Isolator does. It takes the traits from the bee. This takes an awful long time to work. So once you've got those, you can then put these in the sequencer, and what the sequencer does is it analyzes the DNA sequence, and you see there it says in NEI very faint, unknown, and there you see it's just changed to unsequenced to partially sequenced, so that's basically your countdown. Now you can take that sequence and put it in the polymerizer. Now if you put it in the polymerizer, you'll need polymerizing bacteria and raw DNA, so that's the raw DNA from the gene pool. And the polymerizing bacteria is basically you take the bacteria that you make in step 3 here and you mix it with bone meal. So bacteria, bone meal makes the polymerizing bacteria. So you definitely need those two liquids, and this gold nugget's a catalyst, so it makes it work quicker. And what you can actually do is you can turn your sequence from, hang on, another sequence this way. You can turn your sequence from faint into very strong, like you see on this one here. I'm not quite 100% sure what that does, but I believe it speeds this process up of sequencing. And you can see there we've got 8%, so if I take that one out and use a very strong one, see if it goes any quicker. It might go a little bit quicker. Yeah, I think that's definitely going quicker. So I may be wrong about that. I'm not 100% sure. Okay, little effects. Now, once this sequencer is finished with your sequencer, it will give you a blank sequence like that. And what it actually does is you will need a gene database. That's the gene one. It's one of these things here. Okay, made in the carpenter, pretty much like the other databases. It's just slightly different recipe. This is on a lab stand, and once you've sequenced the sequencer, whatever the trait was will appear in here. So you can see there I've got 3. I've got the flowers one, I've got production slowest, and humidity tolerance none. So that's where your sequences are going. And then you've got the inoculator. And what the inoculator does is it puts these traits that you've got in your gene database onto larva. Now the biggest question I've come across so far is, how do you get larva? Well, or larvae. You'll need an alveary, and in the alveary you'll need to fit a hatchery. So in this instance here I'm using an ebony princess and drones, and you'll let the bees go through the normal cycle, and they will give you larvae for whatever species. You can see one's just been made there as I took one out, and it's these larvae that you put in the inoculator. And then say if we want to add flowers, we take an empty serum vial, simply click on the flowers. We'll then need to add runs to these serum in the polymerizer. So see there it says it's empty. So I'll let that run through. Slowly but surely we get to the end, and you'll see now it's got 1 charge. So we can take that out there, we can come back to the inoculator, can put that serum in there, and that serum is then applied to in fact it won't apply it to that larvae because they're already flowers. That was probably a bad example. If we had a bee that had flowers that weren't normal flowers, if they were cacti for instance, in fact let's just grab a modest bee, because they are naturally cactus. So that's modest larva, and you'll see there it started. It takes a very long time, this process. Oh, and before I forget, this bacteria vector here is made in an incubator, again using bacteria that you made over here, mixed with ordinary blaze powder. That icon might look a bit weird to people that have not got thermal foundation, the new version, because they animated it, and that will make the bacteria vector that you see here to go through. So that then charge will get we'll lose that 1 charge, and the modest larvae will then have flowers. The Splicer is an advanced version of the Inoculator. See, where this needs bacteria vector to run, the Splicer doesn't, but it takes an awful lot more power to process things through than what the Inoculator does. So that's just an advanced version of that. And the last block that we've got to look at is the Acclimatizer. Now this is very similar to the one that was in the old version. What the Acclimatizer does is, on each bee you'll notice that it's got a T and a H, that's the temperature and humidity, and it basically knocks those up or down depending on what you put in the Acclimatizer. And what we have to alter the temperature, you raise it with lava or blaze powder, and you lower it with ice or snowballs. And the humidity, you raise with sand, and you lower it with water. And this machine will take buckets, cans or capsules of those. Okay, so if I wanted to, I probably can't do it now because I've already done it with this bee. If we take this Meadows Princess, which is not analysed, so we can't actually, oh it is analysed, and we put the larva in there. Now it doesn't always work 1 for 1, so you might need more. Oh, there you go, it's just proving me a liar, it has done. You'll see that the temperature has gone up 1. And we can add sand in there, which will change the humidity requirements. As you can see there, it's just gone down 1. Okay, and that's basically what the Acclimatizer does. Now, before we go any further, there is something I forgot, and I forgot what it is. That was going to show you. Oh yes, these sequences there, these traits that you get. If you take an empty serum array, you can actually put more than 1 into the serum. You see there? It says production slowest lifespan short, humidity tolerance none. So you can then take that into your polymerizer and add runs to it, and you can add more than 1 trait to a bee or larva at any one particular time. Oh, and lastly, one more thing. It's when you've got your super larvae made with all the traits and the best possible options, to hatch the larvae into bees, simply put them in an incubator with growth medium and wait a little bit, and I'll need power, and there you have it, hatched into, well, in this case a drone with all the really good traits, and good luck breeding those bees back into princesses and what have you. Okay, this concludes the spotlight stroke video. Hope it helps you along your way with your bees and Binnie's genetics. Thank you for watching. Bye.